So hi, welcome to this podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with
Dale Tanner from Ocean Grove. G'day.
And there's some questions to say about the upcoming album ODDWORLD. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Thank you. Yeah, very, very overwhelmed, really, with how positive and just excited I think everyone is so far with every song that we release. It seems like there's a lot of momentum building, and even though each single has been a little different from the last and taken sort of these turns, our fan base as a whole, and even people outside of our fan base, I think are sort of really catching on to what we're doing and are sort of here for it. And as far as a lead up to an album goes, I couldn't really be much happier. It's gone pretty perfectly, and as we could have hoped, or beyond what we could have ever imagined. It's been a great response so far, so I can only hope it stays that way once the whole thing is out there.
Fuck yeah. Well, the album fucking rips, bro.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I don't use this word lightly, but dude, the album was fucking bonkers. You know, that shit was crazy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great response.
Yeah.
That's exactly that's what we're that's the response we're trying to elicit. You know, if everyone's just like, oh shit, that was crazy.
Hell yeah.
That's perfect.
Hell yeah. So is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yeah, so the title ODDWORLD, that's been in the Ocean Grove vernacular for quite some time now. It was a bit of a no-brainer to call this album ODDWORLD, because it is a term that has been sort of synonymous with Ocean Grove and the Ocean Grove sound for quite some time, probably since at least 2016, 2017 is when we sort of started to use this word to kind of describe our music, because we found that every time someone asked to kind of describe it, we found it was too difficult to pigeonhole into one genre. We like to experiment with a whole range of sounds and influences, and so we kind of just created this term ODDWORLD and ODDWORLD music to encapsulate what we do as a band, whether that's just the music itself, but also the art, the music videos, the kind of the whole universe that we operate within is the ODDWORLD. And so this album's very much a returning to the roots for us, and returning to that inception kind of conception moment of ODDWORLD and ODDWORLD music. So it felt very fitting to name the album that, because it really encapsulates everything that Ocean Grove is about. And so it's nice to kind of finally give that, we'd never have a self-titled album, but it's as close to a self-titled album as we can kind of get.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
And any meaning behind the cover art?
Cover art is, so that was Angel 333. He's the one who kind of created this, and we sort of reached out and basically just sent the album, sent a few sort of loose ideas of what we were after. We wanted something that was a little darker, a little bit more ominous in a sense. That's kind of, the album isn't necessarily, I wouldn't say it's dark, but compared to our previous releases, it sort of has that sort of darker tone. And we wanted the cover to kind of represent that a little more, and to sort of not only feel like a sort of a classic. We wanted something that could be placed in any timeline and any sort of generation. We wanted something that sort of felt very real and authentic in an age of very over digitized and sort of AI art. We wanted something that was very real, and Angel 333 was the perfect fit for that. It's all what you see is it's a very much a kind of a real image, and the sort of the tears and the thing and sort of how he's pieced that artwork together is sort of real. It's very analog, which we love, and it was just one of many ideas that got sort of put forward, and it was the one that just really stood out as like perfectly kind of just feeling Ocean Grove. It's hard to put a finger on why, but I feel like just in imagery and stuff that we've had in the past, even though we've never worked with this artist before, it really just fell in line with just the feeling of what you would kind of imagine, especially looking back to something kind of like the Rhapsody tapes. It kind of feels like a nice pairing to sort of that album, and the imagery kind of feels sort of in line with that. And my favorite part, like sort of detail of the album, is the kind of Oddworld barcode kind of on the head. And I like to think that there's little clues in each album artwork that sort of feeds back into this Oddworld story. And I feel like, you know, kind of this image of this person with you know, the barcode and somewhat of like whether it's like an identifier of being within the Oddworld, or like, you know, it's the thing you kind of, that allows you passage into the Oddworld. It can be interpreted however you like, but I like these little sort of moments that it's within our universe. It's not just like a throwaway thing that's just there because. So that wasn't something that I believe we necessarily asked for, but he did that. And it's funny because on our Black Label EP, we actually have Ocean Grove, the barcode on that artwork. And so whether that was intentional or not, I'd love to chat to him and see whether he kind of looked back at that art and kind of used that. But that's a detail where I was like, oh, I'm really glad that he did that, because I think without it, it'd still be cool art. But I think that's the sort of moment that really just like
defines it,
pieces it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Love it.
Amazing.
So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for the album?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts with sort of within, it starts and ends within our sphere and within our little, we call it Oddworld Collective, because there's the three members that you sort of see publicly, Sam, Twiggy, and myself. But then we also have a couple of, I guess, studio members, Luke, our prior frontman vocalist, and also Running Touch, our previous guitarist, who's now sort of started to perform with us sometimes on stage on on DJ decks and all kinds of stuff. So we're starting to explore that. But
nice.
You know, we record with Sam, who produces all our records, mixes and masters. He does the whole thing. So it's completely DIY, completely in-house. There's no interference of, you know, outside sort of label or management or whatever else. So we're very lucky in that respect, that we have no time pressure, money pressure, things like this. That I think if we were to be thrown in that situation, it would really kind of throw us off, because this is the way we've operated for a long time, and it works. And so we just keep going. Every time it comes to a new album, we're like, well, we just do it with Sam, because it's just the only way that we know. And he's great, you know. He's come such a long way in his production alongside Ocean Grove, that we look at each album, you sort of see, okay, you can see how not only is his and our songwriting developing, but his production abilities are evolving and maturing alongside it. And that's really nice to witness and be part of. And so, you know, this album in particular, we were probably more tight-knit within the Oddworld Collective. There was more contribution and more active participation from us all than there has been in quite a long time. And it really reminded me and us of where it was and how it was when we first began. We've known each other since we were, you know, Ocean Grove started in high school. We've known each other since we were teenagers. And so we've been hanging out and mucking around making music from like the age of 15, 16 kind of thing. And so it really felt reminiscent of those times. Obviously life gets in the way and there's peaks and valleys, you know, to get to this point. But the fact that we were able to make that concerted, intentional sort of decision to come together and work on this album together, be in the same space, which hadn't really happened in quite a while. When it's come to contributions from any particular member, it might be one person comes to Sam's place and sort of works on an idea, and then another person might come on another day. But a lot of this album, a lot more of it was written with us all together in the same room, collaborating on these ideas. And you just can't beat that. And we found that like that's when we're at our strongest, that's when we're at our best, is when we're all in the same room. And obviously lockdown and things like that was a massive test to that, because we couldn't even do that at all. So we went from writing a lot of our previous album over Zoom to then all of a sudden all being in the same room together, being like, wow, this is actually just so much better. And it's easy to forget that like the joy and the flow of writing music, when you're actually in the same room and you're able to like in real time kind of bounce off each other, is priceless. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I would say specific to this album, it was that. And as a whole, it's with Sam at the helm, and all of us contributing ideas, but it's all in-house and all DIY. So
Gotcha. That's fucking awesome. I am curious though, like I know you mentioned you guys have been doing it in house since the inception of the band, but do you guys at all struggle with like knowing when it's time to stop and put it down and turn it into the powers that be? Because like you don't have any outside people really telling you what to do besides yourselves. So do you guys struggle with that at all, or have you figured it out?
Yeah, that's been a work in progress to sort of to find where that point is. It's a great question, because it applies to everyone, right? And everyone's going to go about that situation differently. And we like to Twiggy often brings up the quote of I don't know whose quote it is, but it's the fact that like a painting is never finished. It's just, it's just walked away from. Like that you gotta have that mindset. It's just like you can just keep adding strokes to it for a lifetime. But there's got to be a point where you step away and go, okay, that's it. And so we, through time and practice, you develop that intuition to kind of know when things have reached that point. Obviously deadlines, deadlines from labels and things kind of, those help, that they create kind of at least some sort of barrier to what you're doing, and help, especially in a band where all of us are pretty kind of ADHD procrastination wavelength type thing, where like we all don't really help each other in that respect. It's nice to know that, again, when we're all in the same room, someone can deliver a vocal line or, bring an idea forward, and there's no better feeling than when everyone is just instantly like, yep, that's it, like lock it in, move on. The more of those that you can string together, the better, because like it's coming from an authentic place and it's not forced, and it's just like more time efficient. Instead of just going back and forth for the sake of going back and forth, especially when there's so many contributing members. There's 5 people all contributing ideas. It's really easy for like people to be stepping on each other's toes and being like, well, I want my idea to be this and that. I think we've done really well to not let ego get in the way too much, and not have to force it to be this perfect 50-50 split between everyone contributing. It's like if one idea is pretty much just someone's idea from start to finish and we all agree that it's just a great song as is, then it's just like, yep, sweet. But if we feel like there's 2 or 3 ideas that can come together and fuse to create something new, that's the best product versus just the parts by themselves, that's also a great result. So it's from song to song, it varies, but that's sort of, that's how we like to play it, and it's getting better. It gets easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So happy to hear that. Fuck
yeah.
So what song off the album took longest to write, and then which one is your personal favorite?
Just going through track lists in my mind. Fly Away. Oh, actually, it's probably a tie between Fly Away and Cell Division. It's probably Cell Division, actually. I think we had the original riff to Cell Division written even in the same writing phase as Up in the Air Forever. So it's funny that like some of these ideas have kind of been, and the idea of this album as a whole has been there for a few years. It just felt that at the time, Up in the Air Forever was so sort of positive, rock, summery leaning, that putting a random kind of heavier new metal down tune kind of song in there didn't really make sense. We kind of just needed to like create that package and like get that out there. And then we knew that the next step was going to be that. So we had the chorus line, Twiggy had sort of in his back pocket there for ages, and then we had that riff, and they were both sitting in separate piles for quite some time. And as usually goes with Ocean Grove, the song that has been there from the start is the last one that we finish. So like, we'll have an idea that kind of like gets the ball rolling, and then we'll hop onto something else, and then we'll write 8-9 tracks and be really excited and be like, yep. And they'll be like, oh yeah, there's still that song to kind of finish off. And and it's like, oh no, like we've channeled all this juice and all this energy into all these other songs, and then we're like, okay, now what do we do with this song, which we know like has its place, but we just don't know what to do with it. There's always one, and Cell Division was that one, and bringing that chorus to meet with that riff, and then sort of that middle kind of sort of hardcore breakdown was also another idea that we had sitting in another place. And somehow we were finally able to kind of fuse that all together, and in the 11th hour sort of got that one over the line. So that was probably the most sort of challenging, but I'm really, really glad that we persevered with that, because I think that'll sort of be one of the kind of the fan favorites, and obviously is sort of, you know, at like opening the album, and comes in sort of pretty heavy hitting. So that was that. And then what was your other question? Sorry.
Your personal favorite, and that was my
personal favorite. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, that's nice. My personal favorite, I think, would have to be. There's a few. I mean, I love this album from start to finish. But Last Dance, I think, is just pretty special. Yeah, for me and for us, it's a song that brings to mind just a very special memory that encapsulates the whole writing process of this album. We sort of got an Airbnb out in like regional Victoria, where we live here in Australia, and it's just like, if you can imagine rolling green hills like Windows XP, like screensaver vibe, with like oceans, and just like no one around, but just like, you know, sort of cows and green hills and ocean and just this farmhouse. And we were there for like a week, just us five, the ODDWORLD collective all together. And there was, you know, a tennis table. There was a TV that we didn't really even turn on, but we set up studio up on the second level, overlooking this view and overlooking the ocean, and that was one of those moments where it really felt like we were back doing what we were doing when we were starting out as a band, just hanging out, mucking around. Music was getting written and recorded along the way, but it was more important that we were there together, actually just being friends. And you know, early 30s, late 20s, like that's just so much more important to kind of set aside that time, because it's just so easy to lose that now in just in the rush of life as it is. And so within that time period, that sort of week, Last Dance was, at least lyrically and sort of, you know, recording sense, a lot of that song came together in that little writing trip. And it was on one of the days where there was just a beautiful sunset, and we were all sitting in one of the rooms, just kind of, Twiggy and I especially, just sort of nutting out what did we want this song to be and be about, and kind of worked out most of the lyrics. And it touches on just this idea of embracing the sort of death moment, however you want to sort of perceive that, whether that's a loved one or it is sort of more so in a more broader sense, just kind of you know, us on this planet, like where are we going? Is there an end moment? What does that look like? Like, are we going to sort of, be present in that, or are we going to look the other way and kind of just like be blissfully ignorant and everything in between? And so it very much has a sort of a bit more of an emotional sentiment to it, something that I feel very proud of and feel like I could present to anyone, whether that's my nephew and my best friend, or my grandmother, or anywhere in between, and be like, this is a part of what I do and what I've created, even visually in the music video and everything as a whole package. Like, that's a song I can just like, proudly present and be like, this is a piece of art that I'm super, super proud of, that captures a side to us that I think we've done here and there throughout our career. And there's sort of these types of songs in each album going kind of way back into our career. But I feel like this is sort of the one where I think we've finally nailed that thing that we've been trying to capture sonically. And that would probably be my favorite, my pick.
Oh yeah, and it's awesome that you get to have that feeling about that song while also getting to have the writing process experience that you got to have with that song, and your feelings about the writing process. It's just very positive all around.
Yeah.
It is. It's I think that's the unique joy that I guess any I hope any creator, any sort of artist reflects on, is that everyone has their experience of where they heard it for the first time or whatever, but for me, it whenever I hear a song, I listen to an album or a song that we've put out that I haven't listened to in a while, it always brings me back to more so those moments, and I think that song will always take me to that moment, and that's a very happy memory for me, and I think that's a very beautiful thing. It's like the birth of a child in a sense, it's like,
absolutely,
wow, I was there for that.
Oh yeah. So how'd the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, closer be a closer, shuffler and see what fits? What was that process like?
For us, it's like it's really important to piece the album together in a way that it can be experienced as a journey from start to finish. I mean, I imagine that everyone kind of does that when they piece together an album, but I'm not too sure. I'm not sure how much interference there is with that, whether it's just, put the singles at start, front end of the album, and then just sort of, piece together the back end. Like for us, it doesn't matter if the lead single is like the second last song. If that's the place that it needs to be for the flow of the album, then so be it. And so, I would like, I listen to this album and I see it as it's kind of like the perfect return to roots, full circle, fourth quarter chapter to the 4 albums that we've released. You sort of start the Rhapsody tapes, and then sort of starts to bend around with Flip Phone Fantasy and Up in the Air Forever. And I see those 2 albums as sort of brother and sister pairings. And then now with the Odd World, that feels like the pairing to the Rhapsody tapes. And I would like to say at least partly intentional on our behalf, that you can listen from the start of the Rhapsody tapes all the way through all 4 albums and get to the end of Odd World and be like, wow, that was a journey. Let alone just Odd World itself. And because we've had that intention from the sort of early days to make sure that from the first track to the last track, it's almost like watching a movie in a sense. Like there's going to be these peaks, these valleys, these crescendo moments, and then you're sort of left with like an outro that kind of leaves you being like what did I just experience? Like trailing off. Like when I think of Hitachi, the closer to Rhapsody tapes, for instance, when we wrote that and put that there, it was like with this vision of a movie ending and someone's like walking off or on a horse, like riding off into the sunset, and it's sort of like, damn, like what just happened? Like I just experienced like that whole thing, and now it's going off, and I want to see where that leads to next. And so with this album, it's very much like that. As much as it's sort of a mixtape kind of approach as well, like there is no two songs that are the same, and you go from, you know, one style to the next, and it sort of seems like, wow, I would never have thought to like jump from that to that. But I think that's where it's really cool having Sam at the center of the creation of all this, because I feel like he's up at 3 a.m. some nights just thinking about these things. Like how can we get like this like new metal song to go straight into like an electronic or sort of kind of like, I don't know, hip hop style like beat or something. Like how can we make that seamless? And a little bit of a trick to it is like, you know, we make sure that the outro of one song is kind of ballpark within the same key, rhythm, flow as the intro of the next. And so when we're writing, sort of like, okay, it needs to sort of be that, because like we want that flow is so important to us. Like, for me, I'm so used to that when I listen to an album and one song just kind of finishes abruptly and then another song sort of starts kind of out of time and in a different key, and like not really you know, not really having that sensibility to be like, this is flowing. Like it really takes me out of the experience. And
absolutely,
it'd be like watching a movie and there's just like a blank screen for like a couple of seconds. You just be like
what?
Why'd they done that? Like,
that
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of whack. So you know, we see it's very important that listening experience. As much as everyone maybe nowadays doesn't really value the album experience, we very much do. And so anyone listening right now, like listen to it from start to finish, and just pick a moment, pick an experience, whether that's, you know, riding your bike somewhere on Sunset or at a house party. I mean, that might be a bit distracting, but wherever it might be, it's like associate it with some experience, listen to it from start to finish, and form a memory association with that, because it's more than just like these singles and whatever else. It's a package, and it's kind of its own, you know, auditory experience from start to finish. So
gotcha. So
damn right.
You mentioned that like this album in a way is kind of like closing the circle that was started with the first record. Now, are you alluding to like a chapter of the band kind of being closed with this album, or like what can you expand a little bit more on like what you were talking about with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, we've been going, technically we've been going as a band since like 2010, 2011. So it's been already quite a journey up until this point. And in a lot of ways, it really does feel like we're back at the beginning of a new chapter, and one big door is closing and another one is opening, because for one, as I mentioned, this ODDWORLD collective, this unit that is kind of at the core, or was at the core at the beginning and has gone through its own kind of internal evolutions, is now sort of back at a very sweet spot. The music is also back at a point where it feels more authentically Ocean Grove and at the core of what Ocean Grove does than it has in kind of a long time as well. I think just by the sheer nature of us having to move through these evolutions, whether that was by choice or sort of by the circumstance. We've had to sort of ride this wave out and just kind of see where it would get us to, and just do that with a smile on our face and as best as we could, because a lot of these things were out of our hands. You know, COVID lockdown times, band members sort of, leaving by sort of their choice, or you know, all these moments that we had to sort of engage with and sort of adapt to, has meant that we've never really found ourselves arriving again at that moment. You know, we maybe had that moment when things were sort of starting out and we first signed our record deal and we were putting out our first album, sort of like, okay, sweet, like all the pieces have come together and here we are, we're finally doing this thing, this feels great.
Yeah.
But sort of since that moment, 2016, 2017, it feels like there's been a lot of turbulence and a lot of like questions and answers to sort of find. And now we find ourselves being like, okay, that is all resolved, and that circle is kind of, that chapter is closing, because we found the answers to a lot of those questions. We found that with this album and creating Oddworld, it's like, this is our stamp, this is our legacy moving forward. This is the Ocean Grove signature sound defining record. So from this point forward, no matter what we do, this is the reference point. Everything before that was us building up to this moment. It was us finding ourselves as a unit, as individuals, as artists, and creating this Oddworld. And now that we have it, it's like, okay, we can take that and like run with it. But this is the inception moment. Like, Ocean Grove has arrived, and that feels really exciting. You know, to have like a rebirth moment and chapter. So
gotcha. So with that being said, you know, saying that like this is kind of the quintessential record in a way, like this is the sound defining album for the band. How are you feeling going into putting it out? I mean, we're just about a month out. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling excited? Like what are you feeling now, having said that?
I'm so excited. I really am so excited. Every music release is exciting, and it's such a unique joy that I wish everyone could experience. But I'm especially looking forward to this album being out, because I don't like to anticipate too much, but I'm really anticipating just a response from people that will be, I guess, an unexpected joy and surprise from people that like, this is what we're presenting. I obviously we've given away hints of what the album's going to be like with the singles so far. But I think as a whole, there was probably a lot of people out there that maybe didn't expect us to put an album out like this ever again, and to sort of venture into these territories sonically ever again. And so to kind of flip that script and to do the unexpected is very much an Ocean Grove thing.
Yeah.
And going off the feedback so far, I'm just really anticipating that like unexpected joy from people to kind of be like, wow, I didn't know that this was coming. I didn't know that I needed this, but like I got it, and I'm really stoked on that. And I'm just super proud of what we've created, and I can't wait to go out and play a lot of these songs live, because I think it's really going to transform our live set in a way where we already know like, oh, that song will kind of replace that song, and that song will replace that song, and can't wait to sort of feel what that feels like to be on stage playing, you know, that as a collective of songs. It just feels really refreshing at a time when I think we all kind of just really need it, like just that reburst of energy and inspiration. And so obviously there's going to be a varied response from people, and there'll be people out there that maybe, you know, don't dig it at all, and that's fine. But for the most part, it's not really the good or bad that I'm after. It's more so like it's the fact that we've just done this album to begin with, and we've put this album out there. For me, like that's just all the achievement that I could hope for, because as I said, this is that legacy kind of moment that I am really proud of, that I know that we can look back at this album no matter what happens beyond this point and be like, that is something that represents us wholly as a band. It's something that I think represents how far we've come as musicians and just as a group. And I think as fans, it's something that our followers can be super proud of as well, because they've watched and been there this whole journey. And this just feels like that the perfect way to kind of capture everything that's been and everything that is going to be is like happening in this moment. So it just, to sum that all up, it just was like from November 22 when this album drops, something inside me just tells me that everything is like about to change. And I really hope for the better. But no matter what, like it just feels like probably the most significant moment in the Ocean Grove lore. Which is just like that gives me chills, you know. I'm like, wow, like we've been going for so long, but this could be the moment that like things really pivot in a way that's like I don't know what to expect from that point. So bring it on.
That's really exciting.
Right, bring it on. So this one should be super, super quick off the top of your head. I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
New metal. It's fun. And it's Oddworld music. Hyphenated.
Hyphenated.
I mean, I shouldn't even use that because like that's why we called it the title. So like maybe we'll just say it's Ocean Grove, like hyphenated.
There you go. Yeah.
That's
again.
All right. So can you talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments from the creation of this album, positive or negative?
I think the biggest challenge with this album came from like finding the middle point between like obviously the old and the new, because we were so determined for this album to be a return to our heavier, more new metal sound. We didn't want to discard fully like everything that we had built up in the last 2 records, right? Because we have so many fans that have jumped on board in the last 3-4 years, especially in an international audience. You know, when we've sort of toured internationally, we've found that a lot of people that are coming to these shows, you know, they've jumped on board because of these more recent albums. And then so we were more accustomed to having a fan base that have been there from our earlier records, but maybe I think that was more in Australia. Whereas internationally, especially over lockdown and things, people were sort of getting into our albums, and we had no idea that these fans were sort of growing in places just because of Spotify and things, and we'd never been there before. But we'd rock up and be like, oh, like okay, like your favorite songs are from these albums and not our older stuff. And so we're like, that still has such an important place in what we're doing as our older stuff and our heavier stuff. And so, you know, it was just like, okay, how do we find that perfect medium? I wouldn't say there was any in particular challenging song or point with that, but it was you know, I think the fact that we all came together and we were bringing ideas from all 5 contributors, and sometimes that can be really like easy to fuse ideas together. I think you know, Raindrop is a really good example of you know, for a listener to identify this collaborative process that goes on, because you can kind of listen to that song and you can hear the verse and the chorus and recognize that that's sort of one idea and one sort of contribution, and then the sort of post chorus kind of moment is sort of another contribution, and then production wise is sort of another contribution. And it's never just like one person from start to finish just presenting an idea. It's always just like, okay, I've got this idea, they've got that idea, how do we find this middle point where it's like it's still Ocean Grove, but it's still embodying that original idea. And I mean that's just how it kind of comes together, this mixtape idea, and the fact that the album takes these turns. It's not like we sit down and go, okay, we need a electronic song, we need a rock song, we need we look at that from afar loosely and go, okay, we're sort of covering these like different areas, but it's just like what gets presented. And if we like something, we're like, how do we make this work? It's not so much like, no, we're going to write that because it's missing that element. It's more so like something gets contributed, and no matter how weird or wacky, if intuitively, if we're like, that's a fucking cool idea. Like, how can we kind of tweak that to make that ocean grow?
Mhm.
Like they're always like the really fun moments in the studio for me, because it's like it's kind of boundless, and that's what Oddworld music is all about. It's like we're not limited by genre, because that's not what we sort of write to. We write to like what feels good, and like to our own tastes and capabilities, and that's coming from multiple angles. So once you sort of fuse that together and find that perfect balance, and whatever's going to make that Oddworld and Ocean Grove, then like so be it. And then there's the fun point of like track listing that and trying to make that all fuse together. And yeah, going on a point earlier, it's like that kind of has to be on the fly as well, like intros and outros, and just being a bit meticulous with it all. But yeah.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
Damn right. All right. And for this last question, I want you to picture you're on tour. You're at a gas station for a rest stop. You're going in. What is your snack of choice?
Ooh, okay. Well, usually I try and eat pretty healthy on tour. I prescribe to a vegan plant-based diet, so that's also a bit restrictive. And so food at a truck stop is kind of a little bit limiting, but a pretty safe bet is usually like some salted cashews or something like that. That's kind of like, can't really go wrong with some nice cashews. Pretty, that's a very good road snack for me. Yeah, I'd say that's going to be my final answer.
Salted cashews, beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, lock it in.
All right. So as Gloria said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Wow. I guess it's not a plug per se, but I just, always like to take this moment to, well, first off, thank you for having me, and thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure, and thank our fans and our listeners for just their support and really helping us to keep on going through these kind of trials that come through the years. We really couldn't have gotten to this point and released this album if it wasn't for all the little messages of love and kind of appreciation, and they go a long way. Maybe it's not said enough, but we do read pretty much. We'll try and read as much fan mail and messages as we can, and people reaching out and saying that our music has kind of helped them through a tough time, or really colored a part in their life in a super positive way, and things like that makes it all worthwhile, and makes persevering through the kind of unknown and through the challenging times that little bit easier. And I think this is the kind of album that could have easily never have happened. So that I think that's an important like sentiment for any listener going into this album, is like, as much as this might be the entry point for a lot of people, but I think listeners need to know that there's a massive journey and grassroots like beginning moment to get to something like this. Like, this kind of album release doesn't just happen, I mean, all the time. There's the odd band artists that are extremely lucky that they can kind of chance upon something very like this very early in their career, but I don't think that we've done anything as sort of mature and professional and polished as this album, and it's taken a lot of years of honing our skill and our craft to get to this point. So without all those years of touring and putting out music and learning what works, what doesn't, having that feedback and having that support, we wouldn't have been able to get to this point. And so I'm so grateful for all of that, because this is something that, as I said, I'm just like really proud of. And I think just in terms of a national and international contribution to heavy music, is just something that I hope is like, it's like a staple, and it's something that people like, oh, like that's just like a, you know, a key piece of music in the lore of kind of heavy music. And
Damn right.
yeah, it wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be there without the support of our listeners. So like, just to anyone listening, like it goes a long way, no matter how big or small. The messages, buying a ticket to a show, buying a piece of merch, whatever it might be, it really does help. And you don't know where along the line that's going to help. It might be the fact that I'm thinking of a message that maybe came through 4 years ago, but it's helped me through a tough time yesterday, kind of thing. You know, it's like you just never know the impact that these things can have. And so, yeah, just I guess want to express on behalf of us all, like, just that gratitude, and yeah, looking forward to the journey ahead.
Fuck yeah, right. Love it. All right, well, thank you. It's been Dale from Ocean Grove, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.